Okay. We have just officially checked in for my first ever Instagram live. Hopefully this room starts to fill up quite quickly and I can introduce the segment that we're going to be doing. So hopefully, obviously for those that are following me, my name's Kaz or Kazy from Property by Kazy, and today I'm going to be doing my first ever Instagram live. Hopefully if this is successful, it's a nice little segment that we can do on a weekly basis. The premise behind me setting it up is that I'm always inundated with questions, really good questions, but as somebody who's set up a few companies and has worked in management positions, I've realized the importance of delegating. So today I'm going to be delegating, and on a weekly basis I'm going to be delegating to having a guest on that's going to help me answer some of your questions and give another spin, their perspective, you know, on other people within the industry. And hopefully we get some really good value, some really good answers, and, you know, other people's perspective on getting into property and learning about property. Now, the man that I have on today is called Tex Jones, friend of mine, business partner. We've done joint ventures in the past, so I know he's really knowledgeable. I'm going to introduce him, you know, formally when he gets here, but I just speak a little bit about his journey and what he's done. So he, like myself, is a property developer based in South London, specializing in HMOs, has also done rent to rent, as well as flips, conversions, and everything in between. So for those potentially looking to get into flips or get into property in general, feel free to make sure you get those questions over, because that's what this is all about. I get flooded with questions in the DMs. Hopefully I've answered quite a few of those for quite a few of you. But it'll be good to, again, get somebody else's point of view and somebody else's perspective on some of those questions. I think as well, having quite a lot of questions, you know, let's really utilize this resource, because people charge for their time at the end of the day, and this is going to be free time, free advice, free gems that we're hopefully dropping on you guys. So he will be with us at around 5 past. I'm seeing a few, we've got 60 people in here now, seeing some people that I've engaged with in the past. London Property Mum, hello, hi, good to see you in here. London Property Mum has actually got a live later on today, so check her out if you haven't already. It's doing a lot of good things in property. Infinity Properties, how you doing? You good over there? So can I record this? I'm gonna try it. For those who know me, I'm not the best with technology, but I think I'm currently recording it, and I've been told if I stay under an hour, that I can re-upload it. Is that right? Can somebody let me know? Actually, do you know what? I've been talking for a long time. Can someone let me know if they can actually hear me? I'm scrolling through the comments, but yeah, can you actually hear me? Before I have a technical malfunction and cry. Who knows about mullies? That's funny, I do. Actually, shout out as well, the owner of Mullies, good guy, good guy. He actually shared office space in the past. Okay, you can hear. That's amazing. That's amazing. So like I said, Tex should be on. So feel free to, like, you know, get those questions over. Don't have any yet, but hopefully you've got some really good questions. I know loads of people have been asking and do ask all the time, you know, about whether it's getting into the industry, people's journeys, how they got into the industry, potentially, you know, what people have found hard, what they found easy, what works for them. But over the course of the next, let me say, to be honest, for the next 12 weeks, I've got back-to-back lives booked up. So I've got lives with a property accountant, 2 brokers, another investor, a conveyancing solicitor, the winner of The Apprentice, of the last Apprentice series, local agents, people that do rent to rent and have also moved out of London for slightly lower, you know, initial capital requirements. Because a lot of people ask, you know, I've got X amount of money, how can I get involved in property if it's not in London? And for me, I've always operated in London, but yeah, we're gonna have somebody on, Luke from iRent Properties. He's gonna be on in a couple of weeks as well, so hopefully he can really help with some questions. Make sure as well you tell your friends, because I know a few people are gonna miss this. Everyone's saying, can I save it? But you got to be here. You've got to be here right now. Let's get this room full. I'm going to be doing this every week, taking an hour out of my time. So get your friends in, tell a friend to tell a friend, and get them all in here. Mr. Jones told me 5 past. So do we believe that he's going to be here? Also, Tex Jones is a couple of followers away from 3,000 followers, and he's been putting out really good content. For those who are not already following him, make sure you head over to his page, give him a follow. I'm sure we can get him to the 3,000 by the end of this live as well. So let me double check now and add in Tex Jones. Quest. So hopefully he's in time and should check in a second. Got a couple of questions coming in as well, which is good. So hopefully he'll be ready for those. In the meantime, for those who were following my story yesterday, I currently have 2 left out of the 6 Krispy Kremes that I got for free, because I met one of the followers in Krispy Kremes and they bought me donuts. So this episode is sponsored by Krispy Kremes. Can I save the live? I think I am saving the live, I believe, but don't quote me on that because I'm not 100%. So what can I, do you know what? Let me answer one question in regards to property at the moment. So you can ask a question in the comments, or you can actually ask the question directly and they'll be saved. So that's funny. My first question is, can I save the live? Yes, I'll do my utmost. Do not know where this boy is. He's going to abandon me. So my whole premise was to get other people to ask the questions, however, to answer the questions, but he just left me to have to deal with it myself. So let's hope that he gives us his time very shortly. Let's see what, I don't know. What can I catch, but I can't throw? I don't know. Can you answer that for me, James? I like a riddle. Can anyone else answer that? What can you catch but you can't throw? He says gone fuzzy. Is it come back, or am I good? So let us see. Just gonna try and add text again. Who said Texas that tickled me? Oh, we have Karina Lapore in the building. Karina Lapore, blue tick guest. Karina will be on an episode, we're thinking May. So make sure you go and follow her business. The Last Bakery just opened up a new branch in Beckenham. Winner of last year's apprentice with, I believe, the most wins in history. Is that right? Is that right? But she'll be on talking about property from a different perspective, from somebody that's been a business owner and is using, or going to be using, you know, the profits from that business and the success of a business to get into property down the line. It's not always a case of you have to get into property as your initial strategy. If you think you're really good at something else, sometimes your best case is to focus your areas, your time and your efforts on an area that you're good at, and you've built a lot of experience in, and then use the capital down the line to get into property. So when we have her on, we'll be talking from a different perspective as well. Let me see what is going on. Okay, so as Tex is not here, I am going to go against the name of this live and answer the first question. So the first question was, what was the first property that you bought and what did I learn from the process? The first property that I bought was a flat in Sydenham. It was a 1-bedroom flat. I bought it for, I believe, £200,000. It was a property that was previously owned by a housing association. Then had an owner who didn't really look after it, so it required some serious modernization, hence getting it for a good price. Bought that property and realized it was quite big and was able to convert it from a 1 bedroom to a 2 bedroom with a license to alter agreement, the relevant building control, along with a full refurbishment and some slight reconfiguration. Held that property for around 9 months, and we sold at the end of the process for, I believe, 317,000. Yeah, in terms of what I learned from it, I learned that there are amazing profits that can be made in property. I learned that one thing I learned that I always say, and I've said so many times, I think I've said every time I've gone live or done a podcast or had any sort of involvement, was that you don't make necessarily your money when you sell. I always kind of knew what it could sell for, subject to the job being done well. But the money was made from buying at the right price and making sure I did my numbers on how much I could spend, what the ceiling prices were in the area, doing the due diligence on the build costs and making sure that all of those numbers stacks. And if you sort of live within your spreadsheets, it's one of the easiest ways to make sure that you're successful in property. Alfred, how we do? Alfred, why are you not booked in for a live, Alfred? This is a very serious question. You, sir, should be booked in for a live very soon. I'm going to be DMing you after this and confirming the date. Can you confirm that you're going to be involved? Ooh, I have to zoom in. My eyes are getting bad. This is a long question. How did you work your ways to becoming a full-time developer? Did you have to have a certain amount of money, passive income before making the step? So that question was effectively, how did I become a full-time developer? And did I have to have a certain amount of passive income before making the step? And this would be a really good question for Tex Jones if he was here. But effectively, you don't necessarily have to. However, having an element of passive income means that you maybe don't have to take so many risks and therefore don't make so many mistakes. So whilst you don't have to do that, if you could arrange that, I would recommend, it would be beneficial. So how I did that was through a rent-to-rent company that myself and Tex Jones, along with another member, Vincent, were the founding partners of. We built a rent-to-rent company that specialized in professional lets and HMOs. We built it up to 250 units at its peak, cash flowing in excess of £1 million a year. Now, what that meant was the rent-to-rent is an industry that doesn't have such high barriers to entry. So we could get into property and also create an income stream that meant when it came to doing flips, we didn't rush at things, we didn't make mistakes. We also could potentially spend slightly longer in the deal and, wait for the right price, which meant we were more profitable in the long term. So I do think sort of hedging your bets and creating some sort of income whilst becoming a developer is a good option, should it be possible. Get Alfred on. Marky, I'm going to get Alfred on. I believe I'm going to get Alfred on in May, because like I said, we've got some really good guests booked up already and some people that I really want to have on. Reason being is because I'm always recommending people. I'm recommending architects. We've got an architect on. We've got Alex over from AA Drafting, my architect who's done the house that went really viral, the White House. He did that. He did the planning for the 2-unit development in the rear. He did the planning for Khadija House, Khadija Walk, various different properties that I've done, all of my conversions, all of my flips, my building control, as well as my structural drawings and my CGI. He's pretty much done everything over there. So we're going to get him on because loads of people have questions in regards to planning, about how they can add value, their likelihood of getting planning. They might have a property they already own that they want to see if they can add value to. So I'm going to have him on. But Alfred, we're going to get you on in mid-May. Alfred, for those who don't already follow him, does, really nice, good spec HMOs in the Midlands. I really want to say Birmingham, but I might be incorrect. So when I get you on, you can confirm that. What is the best way to reach out to me? I'm here and I'm live and direct. Reach out, ask your question. What did you want to know? But if it's not something for the public forum, just drop me a DM and I'm sure I'll get back to you. a lot of you in here today have reached out to me in the DMs, and I've spoken to you. We've had good conversations. I've done business with some people via the DMs. So yeah, just reach out. I'm only a click away. Where is Tex? That is a very good question that we're going to ask Tex directly. If you follow Tex, can you drop him a message right now and tell him to get over here? Because we don't know where he is. He's 15 minutes into his Ask Tex Anything, and we haven't found him. So let's make sure that we get Tex in here very soon. My voice is going hoarse. I'm going to have a little Lucozade. We're also sponsored by Lucozade. People are going to judge me for drinking Lucozade Original, but I think it's really tasty, and I won't be judged. And also, Lucozade Orange was ruined by Jamie Oliver from the Sugar Tax, so this is now the best Lucozade. I feel like I have him here. I feel like I have him here. No, it's somebody else. I don't have him here. So let me see a couple of other questions. Who's actually messaged Tex for me? Can somebody, Sharina, can you message Tex? And Alfred as well. Can you message Tex and find out what he's actually doing? Do you do JVs, and what sort of minimum investment do you require? Now, JVs are a very interesting area at the moment. At the moment, I'm not really trying to hitch my cart to anybody else's horse, because a lot of people want to do the BRR method, which, whereas I prefer to flip. And if I am going to invest in something for the long term, I prefer for it to be a very specific property. And also, I'm not necessarily trying to be financially tied to somebody for the long term. However, how I tend to do JVs, and the ones that have materialized recently, will be where potentially somebody has an asset. Maybe it's their family home, maybe it's something they inherited, with a lot of potential to add value, but maybe don't have the expertise or the capital to really maximize the value of the asset. So what they will do is they will put the asset in, and I'll bring the expertise and the finance to develop the property or the land or whatever the asset is, or if it's a commercial premises, and then we would take a current market valuation. I would confirm how much I'm putting in regards to capital, and we would then have a profit share agreement of what it exceeds, but the sum of those two figures. But in terms of just joint ventures for flips and active sites that I found on the market or through auction, I tend to take more passive investment from a JV. So what I would do is, you wouldn't necessarily be a joint venture partner, you'd be more of an investor. So you would invest a sum of capital, and you would get a fixed return over a 12-month period. Best property to get into as a beginner? That's a very broad question. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have the man, the legend, Tex Jones. Should be entering the building very shortly. Can we, get some hype, get those love hearts going, because we have you, sir. There he is.
Excuse me. This is the phone I should be on live with right now, and it's God knows what it's up to. So I had to get another phone and join the
Okay. You know what I mean? They always say
I have to blame too many project photos. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, you're too busy as a developer. Do you know what? I haven't reached that level yet, but I hope one day I do reach the level in which I'm too busy as a developer to come into my own, my own life. But yeah. As I've warmed the crowds, we're on 100+ now. People within the audience, that are viewing, that have logged in to see you. I've already kind of gave them a brief overview of you. So for those just joining now, I'll just update things to say this segment is called Ask Somebody Else. I get asked so many questions on a daily basis, but what I've also realized is I have a network of amazing people around me that know so much. Some people loads know more, so many different things, that I want to get them involved so we can get different perspectives on property. Tex Jones from JRE Real Estate. If you're not following those two pages, make sure you follow them. They're putting out some great content. Is a property developer based in South London. From my understanding, he specializes in HMOs, conversions, also has a rent-to-rent brand, as well as doing some land deals, planning gain, and everything in between when it comes to property. I need to use that 5G. I'm working on it. I don't know if I have 5G, but this is Tex Jones. So my first question to you on
ask, ask somebody else is let me ask you. Tex Jones, can you tell the people about yourself?
Hey guys, so my name is Tex Jones, as Kaz has introduced me. I'm a property developer and investor based in Southeast London, and my main focus is luxury HMOs, conversions to flats. So been in the game since 2014, and I know Kazy through mutual friend, and we've also worked together, had long-running business together in property where we focus on HMOs. And we've always, one thing about me, I've always thought about the importance of brand, and how, building brands that live beyond you as an individual. So background is, in terms of education, is business management. I went abroad. I lived in West Africa for 2 years, Republic of Benin, working in manufacturing. I came back, did a master's in operations and logistics. So my plan has always been to be in property, but as a landlord, never knew you could do property full time. People around me were landlords, so I thought, that's a long-term retirement plan. Buy a property every 5 years, say. But through networking, like we're doing now, opened my mind up, met new people, had conversations. I ended up getting a job with a large development company. Left my grad job after 12 months. Took that on, and then there kind of opened my world to large scale development, which is what I want to do long term. But how to structure deals using institutional finance. These are deals ranging from 60 million and up to 190 million, PRS schemes, which are much larger than what I'm doing now. But I still apply the same ethics and ethos to my smaller deals in terms of my planning, systemization, delivery, quality of delivery. The same ethics dealing with institutional investors. I apply the same systems and processes dealing with my investors, in terms of reporting monthly, they get quarterly updates. So you know this, Kaz, that I am very much, to my own detriment, I'm thinking big scale.
Which is good. We like that. We like that. There's a balance, because for some people that obviously don't know our relationship, we had a business that we ran for a long time together, and we both have very different skill sets. So one thing I would say to take away is that I'm somebody who thinks very much about the here and now, what we can do now, what's immediately achievable with our current asset level, our current information that we have available, and I'm very good at actioning short-term plans. Now, Tex Jones has really big goals and really big plans, but having two people that have different skill sets a lot of the time allows you to mesh those and maximize for the best results. So definitely a takeaway, I think, even if it's not a business partner, but somebody who becomes a sounding board, so you can call each other out when you're doing things wrong, or you can help to push people when maybe somebody isn't as confident in a specific area. So I definitely think making sure, whether it's a business partner, whether it's networking, just whether it's having somebody that's going to hold you accountable in property is really, really, really good.
Yeah. So, knowing over the past, so I was saying to another business partner that this whole pandemic, it's been trying, it's been testing, but over 6 years, 6+ years in business, you become, you grow stamina. You get stamina for, a lot of people on the outside will look in and think, how do you cope, with so many moving parts? But it's a natural progression. And I've learned, I know what my shortfallings are, and I have business partners that cover those, and I know what my strengths are, and I lean into those. And teaming up, I wouldn't be where I am today without leveraging, support of others. I'm a big thinker, but that needs, cohesive movement with a team.
Amazing. And you touched on some things in your intro that I really liked, that I think I've seen some questions about, and I'm going to pick at them. And I think because somebody was late, I'm not going to name any names, but someone was a little bit late. What we're going to do is we're going to have some in-depth questions, and I'm going to give you some quick fire bits as well from what I've seen in the comments. But if you can, guys, use the comment section at the bottom so the comments get pinned so they're easier to find. If you put them in the chat, I've got to scroll up and through, and so it makes that a bit more difficult. So if you can. But one thing that I like that you spoke about was your work background prior to getting into property. Now, you worked in a large, how would you describe where you worked? as your last role before being?
So I worked. So I think both all my work experience post grad. So after a uni undergrad, working in manufacturing, helping set up. So a lot of my roles I've been in is building teams. So that's given me a lot of exposure. So the manufacturing role, having to even learn a new language, working with that. Looking relatively young and trying to manage people that are well established in their roles and coming in at middle management level. That whole experience, getting people's buy-in, really. You can't achieve, even our painters and decorators, if they want to down tools tomorrow, we've been there. That we can only, you have to really get people's buy-in. So from that role to my grad job, which was just 12 months, but I had a team of 12, then 78, was managing a line. And then
with your grad job, did you get into that grad job with the intention to get into property, or do you just think that you took? Okay, so because what I was asking more so, why I said that was a lot of people, particularly people, from the age of 60. I think you posted something about an 18-year-old reaching out to you, saying they're inspired, and I would say a lot of people, particularly I know, are starting at an earlier age now. So you took certain steps, to get a job, which I guess one, having a good job that enabled you to save was very helpful. And then a lot of the practical experience, would you say the practical experience you earned in those roles, very transferable? I think that's one thing. A lot of people that want to work in property, they feel that to work in property in 2 years' time, I have to be doing everything on all my hours in the day have to be property focused. But one thing I kind of was speaking about before you came was that you can prepare yourself to get into property without directly working in property. And I think you're a testament to that. In your first role that was a graduate job, there was no intention for property, but the skill set that you developed.
The intention was that I could become a landlord with a good salary.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to be. And I've said not being a surveyor, not being an architect, not having the skill set of my power team has forced me to be an entrepreneur. So you sit at the table as an entrepreneur developer, and you understand 10% of the architect. You understand, not to say I do know, I do know the odd accountant that's a developer and the odd architect that's a developer. But in the grand scheme of things, if we look at our power teams, they deal with developers all day in, day out, but rarely get into property. So I even think it could be counterproductive because I'd be blinkered.
To seeing what you do and maybe seeing the downside of things sometimes because you see it on a day-to-day basis. No, that's a good point. And just so as a question then, because this is something a few people asked me that couldn't make it here today. They said, so take yourself back to being maybe 18, 21, how would you begin to prepare yourself to get into property?
How would you prepare yourself to get into property? Get used to networking. It's a people business. I think that's the best thing you can do. My nephews, younger cousins, bringing them along to environments where they understand business and just talking to people, networking, feeling comfortable in different environments. It's a very, very much people's business. So it's that I think that is a skill set, knowing how to, even, it's not all people. So I know that only a few of my, my contractors, we all get along, but there's some contractors that, in terms of communication, we need to communicate with so many different people. Whether it's estate agents, there's a different way you're going to communicate to your estate agent, to your contractors, to perhaps your investors. So communication is a skill set in property because you need a lot of people to mobilize to achieve what you want to achieve, your goals. And then off the back of that, I would say find your passion in property. A lot of people are chasing property because they think that there's money at the other end. But if you don't find what you enjoy in property, you will quickly fall out of love with the industry before you make any money. So it's, this, and I laugh to myself all the time when I hear people talking about getting into property because it's passive income. Right. That
passive where?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's next time somebody tells you to pay them so that they can teach you how to be benefiting from passive income in 12 months, tell them that Tex Jones said stop lying. Because it's mythical, and it's not, if you're not passionate about it, if you're passionate about anything, you will be successful. Like,
I think that is a very good bite-sized takeaway, that if you obviously you can get into property for money, and because you're passionate about money, potentially that could work for you. But if you don't find a passion point or something that motivates you to get out of bed, go and get it, make the phone calls when the phone calls are difficult, liaise with the builders when they're awkward, call the agents when they don't want to hear from you, you know, do your paperwork to make sure your lending application is going to be accepted. If you don't have the passion that's going to motivate you to do those things, you're going to struggle in the long term. So I think you really do need to find your why in property. So whether that's something that's motivating you, whether it's the money, whether it's the design, you know, what it is, but find something that's motivating you within property to really be a success in it. So I'm going to give you a couple of questions now from the comments. So, okay, so this would be probably down to just your opinion, but a quick answer. So someone's question was, best place to buy in London for a first-time buyer?
Follow infrastructure. So where's Crossrail 1 going? Where's Crossrail 2 going?
Follow the money. Follow the money. And I think just to add to that, obviously manage your budget, because you've also, first-time buyer, you've got to think that it probably is your residential property. So there is obviously the investment element, but also consider what do you need from that property, because there's no point following the money, but it's somewhere that you're going to have to maybe sell within a very short space of time because it's not going to meet your family needs. However, you know, I think, I always say, and it's something that we've always kind of had as a really sort of cornerstone of what we do when investing is, you know, follow the infrastructure and follow the money, because
it's going to have Westfield, you know, just look where they're plowing millions of pounds.
Exactly that. So next question for you. Okay, so this is a question I get asked a lot. Again, I know, Tex, you haven't really invested outside of London. However, I'll ask you anyway. So I'm 22. I'm wanting to get into buy-to-lets with my partner, possibly a bit further up north as the property prices are cheaper. What do you think? Good or bad idea? Go a different route?
Yeah, I would. I think it's always nice to invest at home, but not to the detriment of him getting going. That's, you know, in a nutshell. If it means that you know, investing, doing anything, it's like, you know, exercising a muscle. If you become used to, you know, working with £100,000 property, when you come closer to home, it's just different numbers, you know. So if you can get going, you know, why wait another 2-3 years? There are areas I only invest in areas that personally I feel quite passionate about, I feel exciting. And outside of London, if I'm honest, it will probably be Birmingham and Manchester, because I've been to those cities. I'd live there. You know, there are other cities, and I guess that's just on my own personal experience. I'm sure people go to other cities and find other things interesting. So that's, you know, I have to also think about that, because again, it's not just a numbers game for me personally. I need to also feel, you know, connected to the area, even the type of properties. You've seen the type of properties I buy. They've got curb appeal. I'm not just, again, looking at the ROI. They do make money naturally, because I'm buying well, but there's a number of other factors.
Okay, fair. We've got Rory Kenny. Rory Kenny has asked, developments with planning, what type of finance do you use? That's just the end of the question.
Finance, bridging, buy-to-lets, and private equity finance. So one thing that I've been able to do is in properties that I've got quite a bit of equity in, is second charges. So that's it's like a bridge, but it's not fixed to the actual property that I'm purchasing. So I'm able to, you know, pay that off.
Explain that a little one more time, because I think a lot of people might not be familiar with that process.
So it's so assume you've got a buy-to-let property with 50%. So assume it's worth 200,000.
Okay. Yeah.
And you've got 100,000 mortgage on it.
Yeah.
So that traditionally you can have up to 75% loan to value. So on that property, I might take out, for example, I might get a £50,000 loan on that property. And then that will enable me to go and use that capital. I'm not then tied to, you know, what project I can do that property. The lender knows that that equity is in the property. You know, it's all about, you know, worst case scenario, if they have to repossess the property, can they chuck it in an auction, get their money out? They're not looking to make a profit. You know, they just want to get their money out, and you know, they've been doing this enough. They've done the numbers, and they know that they'll be able to get their money out. So that's what a second charge is. It's or a further advance. So you keep your existing mortgage at that rate, and then the additional mortgage, rather than doing a whole refinance. It can also be better because it's just the higher mortgage that you pay an increase loan to value interest rate.
Yeah. Okay, nice, good answers. John, major property. By moving the kitchen to the living room without touching walls, do you still need to supply plans to certify that the... Sorry, dyslexic is kicking in.
That's all subject. I assume he's asking about when we do our 1 bed to 2 bed.
2 bed, yeah, I touched on that earlier.
Yeah, that's all subject to if it's a flat, you're gonna have a lease. You know, the simplicity of it, I like doing those in Victorian conversions because often, you know, just got one other freeholder, easy to talk to. When you're dealing with companies that are just looking at the numbers, or you're dealing with people don't like change. So if you're dealing with a block of 8 people and they see that you've just moved in, they don't know you from Adam, you're knocking walls around, or they just get a sniff of what you're doing. You know, they can often, I've got a friend of mine that's had a bit of trouble with that recently, and he kindly asked them, you know, he's even got share of freehold, so he sits on the board, and they just didn't want him to move the stuff around.
I mean, bit of information, because I think this is quite like both of our focuses in terms of what we've done. Can you move stuff? Yes, you can. Your freeholder can't unduly reject it unless one of the main reasons they can is for stacking, for example. So if you're in a block of flats and it's got bedroom above bedroom, but you're moving stuff around and now your bedroom is becoming your living room, they could decline it on that basis because you've now got a noisy room above what should be a quiet room. But generally speaking, they can't unduly reject your plans. You will need to bear in mind that you could need a license to alter agreement. You could need building control, or you will need building control. But it's definitely doable, but you do need to bear in mind who your freeholder is. They could make it, although they can't, you know, sort of unreasonably decline it, they could make it very expensive for you and maybe put costs in place that maybe would make the development not worth it. So I think having those conversations up front can be really beneficial.
100%.
Yeah. F.22 asked, what is the Insta for your architect? It is AA Drafting. If you can't find it for any reason, drop me a message and I'll ping you his details. Actually, for recommendations that are passed through to him, you get a between 5 or 10% discount. If you mention that property by Kazy, one day I'm going to know how to do stuff like do this, and it's just going to say stuff here. But yeah, get in touch with him and he'll look after you. Just tell him I sent you. Oh, Alfred invests in Coventry, by the way, not Birmingham. Alfred invests in... Alfred almost took your spot today, Tex, you know. He was this close. He was this close to taking your spot. Where you, Alfred? Pop back up and tell Tex you're going to take his spot.
Take my spot on Instagram.
On your Instagram live, he was going to be here. Tex, I also made sure that I told everyone that you're just under 3,000 followers, I believe, to make sure that everybody in here is following you. So we hit that 3,000 by the end of this live, because I did tell them to go and message you to ask you where you are. So they should have always also all followed you when they came to message you. So I've just gone through the questions again. Let me go back. Okay, this is a good one for you, Tex, that I think a lot of the time also think that there's no silly questions. So whether or not it's an in-depth property question or a question that you just don't have a clue about, don't know if it's an easy question, a hard question, just throw them out there. So this question was, can you explain yield?
Yield, yes, it's based on. So a lot of people look at it a little differently. In terms of my perspective of yield, that's capital return on capital left in a deal. So not necessarily capital employed. If I get most of my money out in 6 months, so it's on a annual percentage return. How many years does it take to get back my money? So if it takes me 4 years to get back my money, then quick maths, that would be a 25% return. If it takes me 5 years, that would be a 20% yield. I hope that makes sense. So if using figures, if I bought a property for £100,000 cash, and my rent, it's highly unlikely using kind of round numbers here, but if my rent was grossing, probably could potentially HMO grossing 25 grand a year, I'd have a gross yield of 25%, basically. If it was getting 20,000 a year, the gross yield of 20%, and so forth.
But yeah, and that's all based on if you're buying it cash, if you're just looking at your return effectively on your money. Okay.
Same numbers if you were buying a £400,000 house and you put 100k in, and you had £300,000 mortgage, basically.
Okay, amazing. So somebody else has asked, if you were starting out or you hadn't got into property yet, and you had, I'll give you some figures because people throw me these figures all the time. Yeah. If you had 40k, 80k, and 150k, what would you do in each of those scenarios? Let's say, just for argument's sake, for clarity, that you have reasonable credit and you're earning the UK average salary of 25,000 a year.
I would probably in all of those scenarios get a good value residential to stretch a residential which is what I did essentially. I didn't have my residential. The deposit on my residential was 12k. It was 120,000, and it was worth 180.
Exactly. So there you go. Exactly that. Buy well and also maximize what you have. So if you have, maybe you don't have the largest deposit or you don't have the highest salary at the point in time to leverage the money you have. If you have a great experience in property, leverage that to find yourself a great deal, get on the ladder. Off the back of that, you said you've bought a property for 120,000. It's effectively, if you sold it tomorrow, you'd make 60,000. You could refinance and probably get out a further 40,000. So you've gone from a position to having £12,000 in the bank to now having £40,000 in the bank. So you've improved your financial position over 300% in the course of, a maximum of maybe 12 months.
Yeah, my broker he was kind of confused. They never kind of, actually the lender even said that they weren't going to lend me because if it was mortgage fraud because of the value. But I had explained that I negotiated well. Another valuer had actually said it's not mortgageable because it's behind commercial. So I had offered 140. I went back in at 120. And yeah, so that's the property I've been able to get second charge on, and also got consent to let after 12 months. So it's actually rented out.
Which is amazing, which means it's cash flowing, it's, it's, increased equity. So yeah, really good overall. Quick question again, we're going to try and wrap up just before 7 because I was told in my DMs if we do this for less than an hour that I can save it apparently and you can then watch it back if you've missed it. So a quick question from the London property mum, any tips from purchasing at auction?
Tips for purchasing? I don't personally purchase at auction just because it doesn't. I like strategy. I like to go in. I like to leverage existing contacts. Tips: perhaps try buy before the auction. It's the one property that kind of we got was we're on Homes with the Hammer together. But aside from that, I think I like compounding and the benefits of relationships. You go to an auction, you buy one property, you buy from an estate agent, you might buy 10 properties through that transaction. The compounding effect of that relationship. So tips, I'd just say make sure you do your due diligence. My neighbour across the road bought a property for 150,000, should have been worth 300,000. She asked me to actually if I can do the kitchen. I looked at the property, and I was a bit nervous to tell her that I know the property doesn't have planning and it needs to be taken down. But I told her in the end it had already been put forward to me by a relationship for an agent. And she literally bought land. The auction title, the auction lot had been changed to land from 3-bedroom house just the day before the auction. And I just advised her to just walk away because she essentially just bought land and she has to take the property down. So it's a risky game, but go in with somebody that's bought at auction before, not for your first property, I'd say, and know your numbers.
I think to add to that, despite the fact I'm supposed to be just asking questions and I'm not allowed to talk. Auction properties, make sure you check the addendums. Tex just mentioned the addendums, which means edits to the auction description, often made a day before. Employ and pay for services, so pay for a solicitor to do the due diligence on the property, read the legal pack back to front, really understand them, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of, there may be distress sales in auctions, but there's also, as Tex Jones just mentioned, a lot of properties that are being sold that have issues, and you're buying issues. And if you're just buying it because it's cheap and you don't know the value of those issues, you could be completely overvaluing a property, as you mentioned, the issue with your friend. But I hope she managed to get things sorted there in the long term. Just scrolling back through, because I'd love to ask these questions in the comment section. So, okay, very quickly, couple quick. Gang, imagine this is an OCR. What were the examples called? OCR was one, right? I feel like it was. OCR, it's only a very brief 2-mark question, nothing too in-depth. Where do you see property in 5 to 7 years' time, prices and situation? Do you think COVID will change things like retail development, etc.?
5 to 7 years' time? We're in a city that, think about the world. London, the heritage that London has, it has corrections, but you zoom out far enough and the trajectory is just going in one direction. You think about how wealth has traveled around the world, from maybe Russia to the Middle East to China. As people no longer want to park their money in London, there's another middle class or billionaires rising in another nation that are looking to park their money in London. London is a safe haven for wealthy people, and I think on us that are investing in the suburbs of London, we're only going to continue rising with the tide. So I think even Birmingham, Manchester, and other areas, the UK in general is, it's on the world stage. It's going to remain on the world stage. I remember when we found out about Brexit, we were together. It was a shock to the system, but people will just adapt. And I think London, if you don't want to invest in London, he will.
I definitely think so. I think what you said hit the nail on the head to start with. You see, if you look, very closely, you see this. If you pull it back, you see this. So long term, where we are in 5 to 7 years' time, how we'll be looking at COVID. I remember talking to people that bought property in 2008, just after the recession, that wished that had exchanged already and wished they could give the property back. That same property that they bought for £250,000 with the same development they were always planning on doing, that they wished they were actually considering letting their 10% deposit go of the 25,000. The asset is now worth over £1 million 10 years down the line. So it's quadrupled in value. Obviously, there's been development and added value there. However,